Okay, good evening, everyone. And should I proceed, Mr. Lembo?
Absolutely. Good
Okay.
evening.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. I'm Tim Monahan. I'm serving currently at George Washington Middle School as one of the assistant principals. I'm here this evening to present the SSDS report. This is something we talk about several times throughout the year. SSDS stands for Student Safety Data System. What this essentially boils down to is a collection of incidents throughout the school year that deal with incidents where there's violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse violations, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and what we call other incidents. And other incidents could be, disrespect in a class or anything that leads to student removal from school, aka suspension. So this is something that we do pursuant to the New Jersey Administrative Code. And in a typical school year, we do one reporting period for the first half of the year that takes place in the winter. And then at the conclusion of the school year in the early summer, we do the second reporting period. And we keep track of incidents throughout the year on our student management system platform, also known as Skyward. And I'm here tonight to present on the totals for the 22-23 school year. And I'll be back hopefully later this year to talk about the current school year as we reach the halfway point. And then again in the summer, we'll submit the data for this current year. The SSDS report could be very valuable for leaders in the district. It provides feedback on student behavior. It can inform decisions on programs that can be offered for students. And it can also give us an idea of what types of trainings will be valuable for staff moving forward. Something that was new for SSDS last year, but will be in place moving forward, is also keeping track of restraints and seclusions for students that might have to be restrained during the school day or during the school year. And we also keep track of HIB programs and HIB trainings in this portal. And this all contributes to the HIB report card later in the year. So I'd like to just start by summarizing the incident totals for the 22-23 school year, which was last year. The total number of incidents that represented violence, vandalism, substance, weapons, and HIB confirmed was 42 for the entire district. Other incidents leading to removal, remember that could be anything from foul language or inability to attend detention or something like that, totaled 49. There were a total of 21 restraints and seclusions for the entire school year. A 28 HIB alleged and a HIB training and HIB programs. These numbers are 162 and 342. And I'm going to elaborate on some of this data as I go through my presentation. So I wanted to just start with a quick incident breakdown. And by incident breakdown, I mean of those 42 incidents, how did they break down? We had over last school year 9 incidents of violence, 4 incidents of vandalism, 8 of substance abuse, fortunately 0 with weapons, 21 HIB confirmed incidents, and a total of 49 other incidents leading to removal, and 28 HIB alleged. And if you're wondering what the difference between an HIB confirmed and alleged are, alleged could be something that's a violation of some sort of school policy, maybe some unkind language was being used, but the school anti-bullying specialist would have, in that case, maybe determined that it wasn't a confirmed HIB. So maybe it was a conflict between students that had some sort of small consequence, but it didn't reach the legal criteria to be an HIB confirmed. So we wanted to go into just a little bit of analysis of this information. And one thing that you may hear anecdotally, and this data I think is confirmed as we can see here, is that there has been a rise in incidents and we're above our pre-COVID norms for incident totals in the district. We have data in the report that goes back to the 2017-2018 school year. And you can see that in that year, there would have been 31 total incidents, and as opposed to the 42 that were on the slides before. So we definitely see a higher trend line in these types of disciplinary incidents. And we kind of felt that was happening last year too, after a couple quiet years with 2020 and 2021. And we're going to dig a little bit into what could potentially be the cause of this in a few slides. And this might be one of the answers to that. Is we have a somewhat large number of HIB confirmed cases, 21 for the 22-23 school year is higher than the long-term average. So that was definitely something that we wanted to dig a little deeper into. And on a little bit more of a positive note, if we look at the breakdown of HIB confirmed cases from the previous school year, one thing that will jump out at you is that there was a significant drop off in the second half of the year. And I think this is reason to be optimistic that maybe we're slowly getting back to a quote unquote normal behavior pattern with our students in the schools. You can see we started out the first half or the first semester of the school year with 15 cases, and it drops to 6 in the second half of the year. So I think that was definitely something to be optimistic about. Something else that's notable and more reason for optimism. I think these are very robust numbers. When we look at the number of programs that are provided and staff trainings that are provided, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit about what an HIB program is. It's really nice hearing our high school representatives start the meeting this evening by talking about a variety of the offerings that are going on at the high school right now. We heard about Miss Wood giving the class presentation. This is where students are kind of briefed on what the rules and the expectations are. But I also think about some of the speakers that have been brought to the district. Last year, we had a number of different DEI and SEL presentations that were provided for students. And I think the purpose of this is to get our students thinking and being more courteous and respectful, having more empathy, and just generally, having a better perspective on things. So I'm thinking about Michael McCreary and some of the other guest speakers that came to the high school and the impact that has. At George Washington Middle School, we brought in the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office to speak about the impact of bias and hate crimes. And I know that was a very powerful experience. So these are just some of the 342 different programs offered for students throughout the year. And we're currently in the Week of Respect right now. And this is another one of these programs where students are participating in campaigns to bring attention to various groups that are not always represented as they should be. The 162 represents the number of staff trainings across the district, and a lot of this will come back to what are called our SABs, or our school anti-bullying specialists, but it also applies to other staff. And the idea here is that these programs are avenues where we're being proactive, where we're getting involved. We're not dealing with these incidents after they've happened. We're trying to prevent them from happening. So just as a reference point, the SSDS portal does provide data for the current school year, or in this case, the school year that was just completed, and it does go back the previous 5 full years. So 6 total years, the year that just finished and the 5 before that. And so just as a reference point, I thought I'd include the 5 previous years. It might be worthwhile just to look at the incident totals, and we're going to see them drop off pretty significantly in 2020 and 21 because we were mostly remote. And I guess it's more difficult to vandalize bathrooms when you're at home during COVID or a lockdown, and it's more difficult to get in a fight when you're just online. So we did have higher incident totals in 21-22 than for 2021, as would be predictable, and even lower totals for 2019-2020, where we had a truncated school year after March 13th. But if we look at the quote unquote pre-COVID years, you can see that in 2018-2019, there were 27 total incidents across the district. And although not as many HIB confirmed as we had last year, I still see 17 HIB confirmed and 12 HIB alleged in the last full pre-COVID year. And something very similar for the 2017-2018 year, where we see 32 total incidents, so not too far off from where we are now, and 18 HIB confirmed and 26 HIB alleged cases. So I think in summary or in conclusion, it's fair to say that the incident totals for the previous school year, the 22-23 school year, clearly exceed our pre-COVID norms. This could be evidence of a higher trend line, but I could be back here a year from now and we could be reporting lower numbers. I know there are a lot of policies that are in place and a lot of people that are working very hard to see that happen. One of the primary avenues here is the HIB confirmed incidents for the previous year. Those are higher than they had been. But as I said, watching them drop in the second half of the 22-23 school year does give us something to be optimistic about. And then finally, again, the district compiled a very robust offering of trainings for students and programs for students. and trainings for staff in the previous school year, and that's going to continue this year. And the next steps will be to continue to keep track of data to report at the midway point of this year. The reporting period will end in January, and we'll go ahead and make sure that that's updated in the portal. The second reporting period will end when school gets out in June, and we'll make sure that the second report is compiled for that. And the district will continue to offer programs as was mentioned. That is all I have. Any questions?
Thank you. Brogan, do you have any questions?
Looking at some of the, disciplinary reports. We saw some increases last year of activity. So I hope that the second half of the year is a good read for this year. Certainly COVID took a toll on many people. And so it's not surprising that behaviors changed without the sort of structure of coming into school and being with other adults and, extending beyond the family. Can you give some more examples? I'm sort of surprised at the number of HIB programs, 300, over 300, what was it, 342? Seems high. What are we counting in that?
Right. So a couple of points, and I meant to also say that through programs like the Municipal Alliance, that's another way that we target a program outside the realm of HIB. The Municipal Alliance works with the middle schools and the high school to provide like anti-vaping programs to be proactive in the realm of HIB. Across the district, a lot of things would count as a program for students where they're bringing students to a point where they can learn to empathize about their classmates and kind of think outside the box. So I can give another example, just something that was meant to kind of encourage some empathy across guidelines or lines with students was at the middle school last year, they brought in a group of West African dancers and put on a presentation for the different grade levels. And the idea was just kind of broaden the horizons of students, but other times it could be very specifically focused. So another example of a program was on the first day of school when the principals of the middle school or the GAs at the high school are going over the actual HIB guidelines and giving examples of what that could mean. But also, Pride Week, different events that are designed to basically to lead our students towards better decision-making and being kinder. And just anecdotally, I wanted to punctuate that by offering that I find that a lot of times these incidents of HIB, one of the things we keep hearing with students is the phrase, "I was just kidding." And unfortunately, when somebody's offended, "I was just kidding" is not enough. And they might see these things on social media. They might see these things on TikTok, and they might see it on TV. They might overhear it elsewhere. But our students just have to learn to make better decisions about what comes out of their mouth.
So would it be fair to say that last year we still had Open Circle? So Open Circle would be
Yes.
part of that. Peer counseling could be part of that. Freshman Focus.
Those are programs that are listed.
Okay. All right.
And I realize
I was just trying, because it sounds like, and it would, if we'd had that many assemblies come in, so it was internal as well as people coming in.
It's school programs, clubs, activities, field trips, and whether that's a higher number, it's a little bit higher than in pre-COVID years, but it's not too far outside of what we normally report to the state.
Thank you.
Mr. Monahan, thank you for the report. I have just a couple of observations or questions. It's only one incident, so if you cannot provide details for singling out, but I'm surprised that at elementary school level, we can treat something as HIB, because when I've sat through some of the HIB hearings, it has to be intent and it has to be for students like commenting on characteristics. So it's not just somebody felt bad, right? But it has to be intentional, that the student had an intent to harm for HR. So at elementary school level, do these really rise up to a level where the student has an intent to harm other student, or is it more training them, educating them, telling them what's right, what's wrong? Are they too young to have that intent to harm other student that it rises to HIB level that goes on their record?
I mean, I wish I could say that elementary students don't possess the intent to be harmful, but that's not true. They do possess that. And another distinction that's worth articulating here is that it's not always that there was just an intent to harm. It could be the communication that was made would be perceived by a reasonable person as capable of causing harm. So to that, what I tell students when I overhear an inappropriate word, and they might tell me, well, I was just singing the lyrics to a song that I like. And I might say, but those lyrics are offensive to someone who would hear them if they don't understand the context. So a reasonable person would know that that's not appropriate language for school. So then what we have to hash out to that point is that something that a elementary student would know reasonably shouldn't be said? And I can think of a couple of examples, both in this district and that I've experienced with some of my administrative cohorts, where it's been, that's not a word we say in school. We don't call a classmate that, and an elementary student should know that that's a very bad word, especially if there had been a previous intervention, like a warning by the teacher.
Right. So that clarifies. And the other thing I noticed again for elementary school is there's just one school where we had 4 removals, which we qualified as other incidents, and for other 5 elementary school there were 0. So are we have we looked at it? Why do we have more incidents in one specific building for removal, and what type of incidents can be for other? They're qualified like serious enough for removal, but they do not qualify as HIB.
Right. So that's a really good question. And in fairness, I don't actually have that authority where when I compile the report, I don't pick up the phone and call each of the building principals, but we do share the information for those buildings to reflect upon what's happened at their school throughout the year and make better informed decisions about how they're going to do their trainings moving forward. So I would say that it's important that we keep track of what's happening in all the schools. Of course, we want to comply with the code and report it. And if there is a series of incidents at a school in any given year, that could be maybe 1 or 2 students that had a ongoing conflict that could result in that. That's for that principal to determine. And if it's maybe a cluster of events related to something that's happening in the school, then that principal, who's already going to be aware of it, would be able to look at the report and be able to break that down with the guidance counselors or the assistant principals or the GAs that are kind of connected to that case or those students.
Right. So if it's related to some students, then yes, what you say, I agree. My question was more from the enforcement perspective. Are we consistent throughout all elementary school buildings, or are we more lenient in some versus taking action in a specific building? So that's the thing that if we can take a look, that we have a consistent policy across all schools.
I would say we have a very consistent policy. I was in an HIB training with all the district administrators, and I'll be in another one in a couple of weeks with all.
But these are without HIB, right? The removals.
Right.
With where it was other incidents where removal was needed. And for summary, at this point, you are not recommending board to take any action or allocate any additional trainings or anything like this from you don't have a recommendation for the board?
Not at this time, not personally from me, but I'm a part of the trainings that are ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Monahan, thank you again. I just had a couple, just wrap my head around a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, so the HIB confirmed, let's just say like there's, and I'm making this up, there's a hypothetical question here. There's an issue of violence, but with an HIB. Are we going to report it twice, or is it just, which one is it getting reported as? if there's two, like, let's say it's a violent against, you know, it would also fall under HIB, but it's also, as we have, there's two different number, you know.
Yes. So something could be theoretically an HIB alleged, I'm just going to make a hypothetical
Right.
up. A student pushes another and it's the student that got pushed reports it as a HIB alleged. And let's say advances the idea that it was based on a distinguishing characteristic, whether it's body size or race or religion. And then maybe the SAB, the anti-bullying specialist, the guidance counselor, the GA, or maybe the assistant principal does an investigation and finds that this is really an assault instead of an HIB confirmed. It would get logged as an episode of violence, one of in that column, and it would also be logged as a HIB alleged for that reason. But there could be a student that in a different hypothetical, instead of the pushing where
Right.
somebody is physically, you know, attacked by someone, let's say that it's some words that are said or alleged to have been said, that incident could be logged as a HIB alleged with no other incident leading to removal. If it were to be found that maybe those words weren't said, it was just an allegation. But as far as the HIB alleged reports go, we don't differentiate between, there's no third column that says HIB alleged that were also other offenses.
So is it possible that some of these could be, or they are all
Double counted? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Especially for that other incidents leading to removal. It could be an HIB alleged and it was found to be a violation of student conduct because some really not nice things were said or inappropriate things were said, but that those things were not perceived to be communications motivated by an intent to
Gotcha.
make someone feel bad about a protected class.
understood.
Mhm.
So I just wanted, that was one. And then when we're saying leading to removal, that includes like suspensions, but
Mostly
also,
suspension.
yeah, okay, so it's not just. got
Yeah,
it.
these are not, the SSDS report would not capture detentions. It doesn't capture the low level offenses. It would be,
Okay. And I think that was just clarifying that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think you mentioned that you don't really have a lot of, you know, any feedback, you know, any suggestions, but just kind of monitoring the data. I also am curious, though, is there anything that's been changed in the last few years? Obviously, you know, Ms. Brogan was saying with, you know, we have our students, you know, now coming back to school, but also with about reporting, because I know a lot of times, you know, the laws are changing or
Yes.
the reportings are changing, and this could also make our numbers skewed a little bit as well.
that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Last year was the first year that the HIB law was amended to include what's called a 338 form, which basically codifies how the process of it in a potential HIB incident being reported to the school. It's then assigned a tracking number. It goes to the building principal, and then it's basically passed to the school anti-bully specialists, which would be those guidance counselors and other folks like the GAs at the high school. It's very difficult to know, but it would stand to reason that possibly there would be more incidents being reported because now there's a form where you can fill it out and email it in to the school. That's possible.
Okay. So we got to keep an eye on it. That's what. So it's not. It is alarming that the number is increasing, but there is a possibility that it's just that we're better reporting. Or so yeah,
That is definitely a possibility.
excellent. Well, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Mahmood, did you have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I want to say I look forward to the next one, but I don't really kind of like.
Hopefully it'll be short.
Exactly. Mr. Shores, we have the final draft possibility of our goals.
Thank you, Mr. Limbo. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. First of all, let me just, if I can just say a few words. Thank you, Mr. Monahan, for stepping in last year and taking over for Basil Pizzito after his terrible passing in monitoring all of our data with SSDS. We really appreciate it. Appreciate your work above and beyond there. I also wanted to just say on the heels of that, I know Mr. Friedman has been doing a lot of work with training, and I thought maybe he would like to have an opportunity to just give comment following the SSDS report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Schwartz. I was gonna jump in, but thought I might come up later. But anyway, Mr. Donnie, what you're talking about, one of the questions you asked Mr. Monahan is what comes to me. So when we start to make decisions about how we're going to look at our trainings, what, are there things going on in certain schools? Are there trends? That informs the kind of trainings you do. So we have a very robust training coming up with Dave Nash from FEA and NJPSA. And it's going to be very inclusive. So it's going to involve every school-based person who does investigations. All the principals are going to be there and a large amount of the central office admin staff too. Just to make sure everybody's on the same page and getting the most up-to-date version of what's going on, because the state changes it. They massage it. I mean, sometimes they fully change it. And then sometimes you get trends as where it's being massaged. The other reason why I like using Dave Nash is he's an attorney. So he sees these things from that point of view, and also very much from a working school-based point of view. How do you implement something, during the school day, during the school year? We started off and had a training from our attorney, Danielle Panizzi, just for the administrative team to give us a kickoff. And now the next one will be much more expansive for everybody. So that's our approach to HIB. But HIB, it's a language. I mean, it's in code, it's law, it's all those types of things. But it's really like, how are we going to approach working with conflict? And how you want to approach working with conflict is looking for a resolution. The idea is not necessarily to punish people. The idea is to teach people and to walk them down a different path and have, a sense of understanding to look at a situation differently the next time.
So I see that HIB training on the agenda, but I'm hoping that you would also cover those 4 removals that I'm worried about those were not HIB. So our policy maybe the HIB may be dictated by the state law and how state wants to handle it, and it's very well documented. But the removal, when it was not identified as HIB, especially at elementary level, is that that may be only district policy, right? That may not be coming from state. So that district policy is, will that be part of this training, or this?
Yeah, there's distinctions and incidents. So what we do is in the morning, we get a lot of the technical stuff. And in the afternoon, we work through a lot of different cases that have happened throughout the state. And some, they walk along that line. So, and part of that training is to try to define, where is that line and where are we going to be on what side of it? But yeah, no, we do cover broader things, not just HIB, but it's under the HIB umbrella when you hire these people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And just to chime in on that also, reducing suspensions is something that I think is critically important, at least in terms of minimizing them to circumstances where they have to be. Generally speaking, the kinds of suspensions that are only warranted are suspensions that particularly pertain to issues of safety and welfare, where the safety or welfare of children is compromised, which then hurts our ability to engage in meaningful learning practices. Actually just shared with the administrative team this last week a report by the Commissioner of Education and the Attorney General about problematic trends in discipline. So we're having some good conversations with the administrative team. We've also been talking about identifying a need for de-escalation training for our staff and for our administrators as well, and then extending that even to students as well. It takes 2 people to escalate a situation, and in my experience, oftentimes when students do end up in a circumstance where they are found to be insubordinate, there can be circumstances where the adults are contributing to the escalation of that as much as the children are. So it is important that everyone understands how to handle those situations to not make a difficult situation worse. So we'll be sharing more about that as time goes on, but that is very much at the center of our radar right now. Moving on to the district goals, Mr. Enmore, do you have the ability to put the goals on the screen, or would you want me to share my screen?
What's easier? Whatever is easier. All right, you share your screen. Sure.
All right, hang on one second. Pardon the delay here.
All good.
Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen now. Oh, I need screen sharing unlocked, please, Mr. Edmore. Thank you very much. All right, everyone, can you all see the working draft here?
Yes.
Great, I'm going to make it a little larger. Hopefully that's okay for everybody. So we have gone through this, we've gone back and forth the last couple of meetings. I reviewed this yet again, and the latest version of this, I've cleaned up the, we had for each of the, we had under each of the goals, we had a few bullets that sort of elaborated on the theme of the aspiration of the goal. And then we had action steps. But I found that when I looked at each of the goals from a formatting perspective, it was a little redundant. Some of the earlier bullets were redundant with the action steps. Some of them were action steps. So I just moved all of those to action steps. We are also using the concept of know where we are as the kind of unifying theme. When I was looking at that,